Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are looking at something pretty wild. Not just a scoreboard, but really the opening salvo of a brand new league. A total system shock.
It really is.
Our source material for this is the full 16-game data recap from week 1 of the Comtown Reboot League. And this isn't, just a summary. It's a detailed look at the detonation point.
It's a data drop.
Mm.
When you lay it all out, it looks less like a week of competitive sports and more like a declaration of war by the offenses.
Exactly. So our mission today is to just quickly pull out the core lessons, the big trends from this opening week. The real question is, what story are these numbers telling us about this new league?
Well, the first story they tell is that whatever we thought we knew, whatever balance we expected, is gone. Week 1 completely shattered it.
Right.
It absolutely did. The data backs up the number one takeaway. There is no easing into Comtown Reboot. We heard all about the new rules, the faster pace, the limited substitutions, and this data confirms it's created a completely new environment.
Teams were either ready for the fire or they got burned.
Sometimes catastrophically, yes.
So if you were curious about this new league, well, you now have a blueprint of its extreme tendencies. This is not the league you were watching last season. Let's start with the clearest and, frankly, the most shocking trend in the data. The sheer volume of points. I mean, the lead has instantly set this incredibly aggressive offensive standard.
It's historic for a single week of games.
Right. I mean, before this season, seeing one team crack 50 points was a big deal, an event. In week 1 of the reboot, we had 5 teams cross that 50-point line.
5. And that number is so important because it signals that 50 points isn't the outlier anymore. It might just be the new ceiling that the best teams are shooting for every single week.
And that completely changes how you have to think about defense.
Everything. It changes everything.
I want to really focus on the scale here because just listing 5 teams doesn't do it justice. Let's look at the absolute peak. The Atlanta Falcons. They led the charge with a jaw-dropping 67 points.
67.
Right behind them, the Tennessee Titans dropped 66. And then the New Orleans Saints scored 61.
And this high volume, it's not just about teams being good in the red zone. It's a symptom of the league's new structure. That faster pace, the reduced substitutions. It puts so much stress on a defense's depth.
So one mistake.
One missed tackle, one guy blows his coverage, and it's immediately a huge play. Defenses just couldn't recover. They couldn't get fresh bodies in fast enough. The game literally sped up beyond their ability to adjust.
And that speed created this immediate and just devastating separation. It wasn't just high scoring, it was pure dominance. Let's dig into the 2 results that really feel like statement wins.
The kind of games that get coaches fired in week 2.
Yes, exactly.
Well, the most dominant one, without a doubt, have to be the Tennessee Titans' 66-0 destruction of the Denver Broncos.
A shutout on top of it all.
A 66-point margin and a shutout. That's not just a loss. That's soul-crushing. It's the definition of a statement that says you did not belong on the field with us today.
I hear that, but I might argue the Falcons' 67, even giving up 29, is a bigger sign of just raw, unstoppable offensive power. But you're right, the data puts the Titans' win in its own category. It was just total control.
It was. And then you've got the Dallas Cowboys putting up 56 on the Philadelphia Eagles, who only managed 8 points. That game got out of hand so fast. The Eagles, they never found any traction at all.
And we can't forget the Miami Dolphins. They beat the Indianapolis Colts 35-0. Now, that score is lower than the others, but it's another shutout. It shows total domination on both sides of the ball.
Right. And that's the counter-argument to all the chaos. It proves that while offense is king, an elite defense, one that's actually tuned for this new speed, can still create a complete mismatch.
So if we connect all this back to the big picture, the scoring pace, it means teams have to adapt their whole strategy, especially on defense, or they're going to get left behind instantly.
Instantly. Week 1 immediately split the league into contenders and teams that are, as the source says, already searching for answers. That search doesn't start in October. It's starting right now.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit, because what we're really talking about are the individuals who didn't just survive the shockwave, but thrived in it. We have these astronomical team scores, but who is driving the machine?
Yeah, who's putting up what the source material called video game numbers.
Exactly.
And when you look across all the data, there is one undisputed defining performance from week 1. It sets the bar ridiculously high for everyone else. It's the kind of day people are going to be talking about all season.
You have to be talking about Cam Ward of the Atlanta Falcons,
Oh.
the guy behind that 67-point explosion.
Absolutely. Ward delivered a truly historic performance.
Yeah.
We're talking 584 passing yards and 9 touchdowns.
Aye.
9. The data is clear. This was easily the top individual outing and the best stat line of Week 1. He wasn't just taking what the defense gave him. He was creating chunk plays on every single drive.
And just to put that in perspective for you, 584 yards and 9 touchdowns. That's a statistical anomaly in one game. That's what happens when a defense just completely collapses under this new pace, and a quarterback has the skill to exploit every single crack.
And while Ward's performance was, an outlier of the century, he wasn't totally alone. Who was the second biggest statistical winner?
That would be Malik Willis, New York Jets. He threw for 446 yards and 5 touchdowns in their win over Pittsburgh, 38-20.
A great day.
A great day, and what's interesting about Willis is that the data noted he showed complete command of the offense. So this wasn't just him airing it out, it was efficient, it was controlled, decisive. It shows these new stars in new roles are adapting right away.
And that brings us to what I think is the most illuminating part of these stats, because it shows you the new baseline for what's considered failure. We have to talk about the statistical casualties.
Right. This is where it gets really interesting, because it totally redefines what offensive success even means.
Exactly. These were the quarterbacks who had, truly excellent statistical days, numbers that last season would have guaranteed a win. But they lost because their opponent was just on another planet.
Their problem wasn't that they played poorly.
No, not at all. The problem was they couldn't slow the other team down for a second. Look at Jalen Hurts for the Arizona Cardinals. He throws for 389 yards and 4 touchdowns, and they lose 61-28 to the Saints.
That's a huge effort, just completely erased by a defense that couldn't get a stop.
Totally negated. And then there was Drake May of the Raiders. He puts up 379 yards, 2 touchdowns, but still loses 41-32 to the Patriots. Nearly 400 yards, and he loses by 9.
And the most tragic one might be Michael Penix Jr. for the Buccaneers. He gets 379 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Excellent numbers. But he was the main victim of that Cam Ward assault. They lose 67-29.
So these incredible stats don't lead to wins. What does that tell us about the league beyond just, play better defense?
Well, it highlights a fatal flaw. It's the inability to be efficient when your opponent is running at maximum velocity. For these guys, the source suggests it wasn't just the yardage they gave up, but the type of drives their opponents had.
Long, sustained drives mixed with quick strikes.
Exactly. No offense, I don't care how good you are, can survive giving up that level of production. High-level QB play is now just the minimum price of admission to stay competitive. It's not a guarantee of victory anymore.
So if you turn the ball over, or even just stall in the red zone once,
You're handing the other team a critical, probably insurmountable advantage. They needed perfection, and they delivered excellence. And in this new league, excellence just wasn't enough.
So we've spent a lot of time on the explosive offense, all the chaos, but let's shift gears, because for every Cam Ward spectacle, the data always shows us an exception.
Right, the counterpoint.
The teams that won through efficiency, through situational football, and through, stout structured defense, they didn't need 60 points. They just needed control.
And this group, this is the early warning sign for those teams who are relying only on their offense to outscore everyone. They showed that you can beat these new rules if your defense is fast and disciplined enough.
And the Buffalo Bills seem like the perfect example of that. A complete, calculated team win.
Yes. They beat the Baltimore Ravens 38-7. It's a blowout, but it's a controlled blowout.
That's a good way to put it.
Right. The analysis called it one of the most complete team performances of the whole week. Buffalo's defense just suffocated the Ravens. Baltimore never got into a rhythm. They had bad field position, and you could see their frustration building.
It's the total antithesis of those chaotic, high-scoring games.
It is. It shows that an elite defense, if it's targeted correctly against this new pace, can still completely dismantle a high-powered team.
That structural win is so key. And then you have the games that were tighter, where it was more about execution than just overwhelming firepower. Sort of a winning ugly philosophy, but adapted for this high-scoring era.
Exactly. Look at the New England Patriots. They win 41-32 against the Raiders. Now, Drake May had a strong day for Vegas, but New England got the win by capitalizing on key possessions.
Converting a huge third down, forcing a turnover.
Right, controlling the final minutes. It was a win built on situational football. They executed when it mattered, The statistical casualties, they faltered in those same moments.
Another great example is Washington beating the Giants 27-19, a divisional game. The takeaway wasn't high drama, it was just discipline.
Yeah, Washington consistently moved the ball and finished drives. The Giants, on the other hand, struggled to convert key opportunities. It shows that even when scores are high, it still comes down to converting on fourth down and being efficient in the red zone.
It's still a game of inches, even if the ball is moving 100 yards a minute.
And then we had the tightest game of the week, a real shootout. Kansas City just barely beat the Chargers, 38-35.
That game proved that when two of these elite offenses meet, it really just comes down to who makes that one final perfect decision under pressure.
The Chiefs sealed the win late. High-stakes execution was the difference, not just who threw for more yards.
So these controlled wins, especially what the Bills did defensively, they offer a bit of hope for defensive coordinators everywhere. They show that competence in all three phases, not just huge yardage, is still the foundation.
The key is just finding a defense that can resist the fatigue and substitution problems built into this reboot structure.
So if we look back at the entire landscape of this first week, the two main takeaways from this deep dive seem crystal clear. One, the Comtown Reboot League is defined by extreme, often chaotic offense.
Yeah, those 5 50-plus point scores prove that.
And two, there's immediate separation, shown by these huge individual performances and all the dramatic blowouts. It's a league where the gap between the prepared and the unprepared isn't measured in a few yards, it's measured in dozens of points. Week 1 gave us blowouts, shootouts, and early separation.
Teams like the Falcons and the Titans didn't just win. They announced themselves immediately as the new powers. The whole environment has fundamentally shifted. It's a highly aggressive offensive standard, and everyone else has to catch up right now or face statistical oblivion.
Which brings us to the big question for you, the listener, as we look ahead to week 2. The source material mentions that next week will tell us who is real and who just caught the wrong matchup.
Right.
We now know that giving up 30 points might be a defensive accomplishment, not a failure. When the offensive baseline is this high, all the metrics have to change.
So you have to ask yourself this. What specific statistic do you think is the most sustainable predictor of success going forward? Is it massive yardage, which, Cam Ward proved is possible, but maybe not repeatable?
Or is it perfect red zone efficiency, which shows discipline? Or is it just a team's defensive floor? The absolute max number of points you can afford to give up before a loss is basically guaranteed.
Because if the answer is that you can't allow more than 30 points, then this league structure is going to force teams into financial and structural exhaustion just trying to keep up.
Is this new league sustainable, or will week 2 show a massive regression back to the mean? We'll leave that with you. Thanks for joining us for the deep dive.
Until next time.